Welcome back, everybody. We're in the last segment of the show, and I know that this is an issue that both Doc and I have a little bit of exposure to. We're talking about, to close out the show, the issues surrounding synthetic marijuana, otherwise known as K2. I had a client of mine a couple years ago who I didn't represent him on a drug charge in this regard, but I did. He had some different, and I'll tell you this. He had a different recollection of a police interview that he did that was on videotape, and I got a copy of the videotape and also the transcript. And he told me that he didn't say certain things or didn't make certain statements that he did, and I showed it to him, and he said, "Well, I had that bag of K2, man. It turned my brain to Swiss cheese." And as somebody who has smoked the real thing in the past, I can say that there have been spotty times, but nothing like this. Nothing like remembering a situation completely differently in weird, random spots. And so that was an eye opener. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's marijuana in and of itself can cause hallucinations. There have been some reports that it can cause heart attacks, sweating.
Only if you smoke way too much of it.
Yeah, well, still.
So you have a lot of it.
You can have depression, psychosis, a bunch of different things. And of course, the stuff that Lefty smokes is probably a lot worse than the stuff that my compatriots smoked, and probably a lot worse than the stuff that, my grandparents, people smoked. The bottom line is this new stuff. Let me explain how this stuff works. All this stuff works at the CB2 receptor site. That's in your brain. And what this basically does is release a ton of dopamine. Dopamine is kind of an oil for your brain. Now, all cars need oil. However, if you put too much oil in your car, it has a tendency to sludge it up and not make it work very efficiently. All right. That's how I'm going to relate it. The problem with the new synthetic cannabinoids is that, one, nobody knows what's in them. What's on the package when it's been tested is usually not what they find. That's number one. That's why, specifically Germany has banned it. And every time they find this stuff, they look at the label about what it's supposed to be in there, and then they test it. It's never in there. Number two, this stuff is 100 times more powerful than the most powerful, and this is a relative term, most powerful marijuana out there. So you're talking about an effect that's 100 times more potent than anything that you can grow naturally. Three, these people adjust the chemical structure of it all the time. So you really don't know what you're getting. It's the difference between old time moonshine runs, right, back in the Prohibition era, when, you don't know really what's in it. You just know it's alcohol, and the alcohol we get today. And there's a difference. And the problem is there's been a spike, an over 200% increase in deaths in less than a year. These kids are dying. These kids are smoking this stuff once, and they're becoming psychotic for life. A lot of these kids have smoked it, and in the old term, I don't know how old you are, Dave. You appear to be fairly similar in age to me, which, is 28. And the bottom line is I've had patients come in, and their family even said, he only smoked it once, and this kid is now a burnout. So you're getting kids that are burned out. And I see this probably 3 times a week in my practice in Des Moines, Iowa, right? It's not like I'm in New York City. I'm in Des Moines, Iowa. And this stuff is wreaking havoc. And so the problem is I'm going to ask you, because I'm sure you've done some research on this. The argument from the pro-marijuana people is, well, if you legalized marijuana, are you done fiddling with that now?
Sorry. No, it's driving me nuts.
I have a little kid with ADHD right over here. So if we legalize marijuana, do you think that this problem would go away because people would just go back to smoking marijuana? Or do you think this is a problem that would still go on? Because this stuff is supposed to be safe, a natural product, and the rest of it.
Well, I don't. It's kind of the difference between whether or not you think that just because, whiskey at 40 proof is legal, whether people are going to, and you may, if you're going to drink less of, 100 proof grain alcohol or something, there's a segment of the population that's still going to go with the higher octane stuff. I mean, there are a lot more better and different reasons to legalize marijuana than to curb K2 usage. Several among them making criminals out of people that have a substance problem, while there has been no definitive evidence that marijuana is, say, even close to as addictive as a cigarette. It does show dependency issues. People have reported in certain studies with certain withdrawal symptoms after they stop smoking after a while. Now, all the negative things that you've said about marijuana, the research that I've done on it, the folks that have been, and there's not very much research on marijuana because it's still illegal, which is a problem for scientists in this country. But that, sure, those things that you've said about marijuana are true in a certain degree, that it's a mild hallucinogen, but you have to smoke so much of it that you just, no one in a normal circumstance smokes that much at any one time, because it would be sort of like, drinking until you pass out. You can do it up to a certain point, and then you poison yourself, and that's not how people consume. That's not how most of folks that consume substances consume them. Addiction and abuse are a small segment of the population, but just crusading aside, the bigger problem that I have with any sort of response to a new drug problem or new drug crisis is that it's not treated like a health crisis. It's treated like a criminal problem. We sit here and we talk about how these kids are dying, so we have to do something about it. We have to do something. We have to protect these kids from themselves. We have to do something. We have to make it hard to get, or we have to make it illegal or something. And you're making criminals out of people that really aren't criminals. They have a substance problem. And so a solution would be, rather than try and, wipe the floor clean of all illegal drugs, but to treat it less like a moral failing and more like a health issue. That would be my take on it.
Well, you and I agree on that. There's a statement he said that I disagree with. There's tons of data out there now about the effects of marijuana on the mental system.
And it's mostly not effective or positive.
And it's
mostly.
Well, that isn't true. I mean, we're really, especially from the studies that are coming out from Colorado from 2013, 2014, are really showing a negative impact. And I talked about it one time.
But you don't.
Very negative.
Okay, fine. Bring them in sometime, because the governmental literature.
I'll send them to you.
The government literature.
You can't get wound up 30 seconds before we gotta go.
The government. Well, you brought it. No, you keep saying this, and you don't ever back it up. The governmental literature that's come out of Colorado.
I'll send it to you.
It's been uniformly. Their legalization.
They spent an extra $264 million just treating psychosis that they didn't treat the year before. That's pretty straight up.
Correlation and causation. Okay, great. Thank you very much for your logical fallacy.
It is not a logical fallacy. It is causation and correlation. We're going to be back next week. I'm going to start really, I don't know, but we're going to be back. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, David, for showing up. We love everybody here.
We do.
All right. We hate each other like brothers. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Good